particular session, they seem not to be as interactive. I said, it's okay because I realized that they're thinking and they're evaluating what it means for them. So many of them are at the point where they're recognizing information, and especially when we ask them, if you as a child, if you became a parent and your child had these symptoms, would you take away the device as a parent? So these are the questions we are asking them when they recognize all the signs and symptoms of digital addiction. All right? But it's not only their mental health that is being impacted, it is their real world that is being impacted. Their image. Messages of themselves as minors or with other minors. That is why, for instance, if you logged in on another device into your email, you get an email from Google saying, hey, did you log in on this device at this time? We just verified that it's you. All right, so you are not anonymous online. And we want that our children's, what we call digital citizenship, in other words, their online citizenship, is safe, confident, and positive. And that takes in the 3 C's of digital citizenship. Who are they contacting online? Do you know who they're contacting online? Are their conversations appropriate? Are their conversations positive? Is it something that they are confident in interacting with? All right. What about their conduct? What is the information they're sharing about themselves online? Pictures, messages, and so on. And the content. What is the content that they are consuming, and what is it that they are producing whenever they go online? And parents, you need to monitor these 3 C's. Who they're digitally contacting, how they're digitally conducting themselves, and what content are they consuming. We talked about cyberbullying. Cyberbullying is the use of technology to repeatedly harass, threaten, and embarrass someone. And this is wrong. It's a practice that we must, as parents, try to encourage our children not to get involved in being the perpetrators of cyberbullying. All right, and this includes harassment, malicious communication, sharing indecent images, stalking someone, threatening violence, and inciting crime. Also in terms of impersonating persons, especially if you have access to their information. And there are 3 main rules that we look at when we talk about cyberbullying when we go into schools. We talk about the person who is the bully, who's repeatedly harassing or threatening others online, the victim, who's the subject of that harassment, and then there's the bystander, the person who's witnessing or knows that this is happening. When we went into our schools and when we did the survey, we realized that several of our children, at least half, more than just half of our children, have been involved in cyberbullying in some form or fashion. 71% of the witnesses of this were being female, and 44% of males said that, hey, they've been both either perpetrators or victims of cyberbullying. And as you can see, there are many persons who would have, at least one in four students would have witnessed cyberbullying. 15% have said that they're victims. And this is one of the top things that our counselors in schools are encouraging us to come in and talk about, because of the amount of fights, the amount of conflicts, harassments and threats and so on that are manifested in the physical forum coming out of what's happening digitally. And one of the things I would say as parents, why you need to monitor this, is that I believe that in the upcoming legislation, cyberbullying is going to be an official act as a part of the law for the Computer Misuse Act. I know in the States that they're not only bringing laws against persons who cyberbully, but also they're considering the parents, especially if the parents have knowledge. So I could give you a quick example. We had a case in Florida a couple of years ago where a young lady committed suicide. And when the police did the investigation, they recognized that this young lady was cyberbullied by two other female students who have been repeatedly telling her, kill herself, nobody likes her, all that type of stuff. And when they did further investigation, these students, when she died and the news was announced, they were like, oh, we don't care, she could have done that ever since. So because of that, the police decided to press charges against the students in terms of encouraging the young girl to commit suicide. When they did further investigation, they realized that the parents of the bullies knew that they were doing it and did nothing about it. So the sheriff decided that he's going to look into further charges against the parents for not getting involved in prohibiting the bullying act. So these are things that we suspect will be coming as part of our legislation. And with children online involved with all these things, we said that they're communicating with a lot of their friends and so on online. That's the main reason why they use social media. Many of them get involved with oversharing, sharing too much information, which also includes sometimes your credit card information. And I'm going to pause to give an example of how this works. Your child might be into online gaming, and many of these online gamings have things where you could purchase features or skins or weapons or whatever. And a stranger could come on, join, become a friend of your child, your son, and playing with them, say like, hey man, let me purchase a skin for you. And they purchase a skin. Whoa, this skin costs $60. You do this for me? Yeah. And they build that relationship. They purchase little things, little knickknacks and so on throughout it, and build that trust with your child. And then they come one day and say, hey, I want to get this $10 skin, but I kind of out of money right now. I ain't get paid yet. Could you spot me $10? And the child is like, but I ain't got no money. But your parents got a credit card. Just go and get their credit card. I can pay you back. And the child might be like, I don't know if I should do that. But then they're saying, like, hey, I spent $300 on you, though, and just $10 you getting all like this? I thought we were friends. So they take the child on the guilt trip. The child goes and gets only this one time, all right? Because the child may not have knowledge of how credit cards work. And they go get that credit card, share that information with the person, and then there goes your bank account. So parents, we must be aware of what our children are doing online. Who are they connecting with? We must set standards for them. And it's not only the persons who want to take your money, but it's persons who want to take advantage of the innocence of your children. We're talking about online predators, adults who pretend to be children, who befriend them in order to get them to lure them into doing illegal or sexually explicit things. We have catfishers, people who fake their identity to abuse them. And sometimes, in many cases, friends and family people that we know are encouraging them into behavior that they should not be involved in. And I want to have the time to go into the techniques, but as we go into schools, children are telling us that yes, they come across these individuals, persons who are grooming them into certain types of activities and fishing for information. I say to parents, always ensure that you are checking on the statuses and you're following your children on social media, because that can become a breeding ground for what you would call expert groomers. Let me give an example. Your daughter had a fight with you as a parent. They go on status and say, my mother just don't get it. She's just so backward, whatever. I just hate my mother. And someone seeing that status can message them and say, my mother's the same way. Blah, 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 mirroring the emotions that your daughter's going through. Then they may start on now by sharing something that's very private. Well, they consider private. They share private information and getting them to be more vulnerable, be more open, and in building that relationship with them in order to basically take you out of the relationship, out of the equation. And we are seeing this happening. And when we ask our students if they ever come across this, out of the 603 students who were involved in this, we had 482 incidents of persons recording that either an adult came online and they wanted to offer me some gift, whether it's money or something in exchange for friendship, or in exchange for an online call or a video meet, or in exchange for photos, or in exchange for personal information, or to face-to-face meet. So our children are saying that this is what they're encountering online. People who are offering this. I think the worst case I've seen of this is when I was in primary school, during a primary school session, an 8-year-old girl who has access to a phone said to me that, sir, there was a man, well, she thought the person was a man, who she posted a picture of her and her little brother, and this person not WhatsApp, it was on WhatsApp. I can't remember the social media platform. This person messaged her and said, hey, I would give you, I think it was money or something, if you give me a chance to talk to your little brother. This was not something that the parents knew of, because she said, I didn't tell nobody about this. All right, so these are things that are happening here in Barbados, by the way. All right? Sexting. We talked about sexting, which is the sending of explicit messages, images, or videos of yourself or others, including minors. And when we ask our students, how many of you have done this? You will see the bar graph at the top is broken down into ages. Out of these 602 students, we have several students who would have said that they've been involved in it at least a few times or many times. With the highest age, the most popular age being 15 years old, where they are involved in it. It is something that, as parents, you must know that this is against the law, one, and this is a practice that can severely damage the future reputation and character of your child. Even in our camp that we had recently, some of the children came over and confessed that, yes, they have been involved in this, and they're thankful to see the information that we're sharing, and they're wiser now in what they ought to do. All right? So what can you do as parents? Be internet smart. Teach and set standards in your home to help children identify what is fake, what is dangerous, what is inappropriate content, and so on. Get involved with using the technology to filter and monitor what your children are doing. And this is something that you must be done in balance with having meaningful, valuable relationships. Be protective, but be approachable, all right? Create an environment where your child feels confident in speaking with you about inappropriate content and their challenges, all right? We want our children to be happy, but their happiness is not based on instant gratification. That is what their brains are telling them right now as teenagers. They want everything now fast and everything that is sweet and everything like this. But as parents, we need to know how to create that balance and to set goals for their digital engagement. And we want you to do that in setting goals for their privacy and safety. If you don't do this, somebody's going to do it for you. Someone online or some app. You must set goals as to what does my child's digital safety and privacy look like? How do I want my child's mental health to be shaped by what they do online? How do I balance it in terms of how they're developing brains and the type of student I want them to become? Their critical thinking skills, their digital literacy skills, which is using the internet and the media for their development and education. How is it going to impact their reputation and character, their relationships, and so on? So as parents, we need to be very vigilant. We need to build quality relationships with our children, spend quality time with them, and this is something, especially as busy parents, is so difficult to manage. Even now, you have to confess that, right? So we need to spend quality time with them, develop an interest for what they're interested in. Be slow to judge and quick to listen, all right? Be slow to judge and quick to listen. So if your child says, if you discover that your child is looking at porn, your response is, what are you doing looking at this? Blah, 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 blah. No. Your response is first to find out what they know. How did you come across this? What led you to this? Have that conversation with them so that you are made knowledgeable of what they're facing, what they're going through, who's introducing it to them, without they're thinking that as soon as you go off the hat, well, they shut down and say, well, I ain't saying nothing no more. All right, so have that relationship with them where you're talking to them about their experiences and finding out what they know. In our studies, in our survey, we asked students, how comfortable are you with telling your parents or trusted adults about inappropriate contact and messages you've received from persons? And this is basically their contact. 46% said they were comfortable. Approximately 30% said they were uncomfortable talking to you about who they're communicating with online. In terms of what about the content you're looking at, especially if it's inappropriate content, you see the numbers drop in terms of comfortability, and the discomfort numbers also increase by a couple percentage points. So 36%, over a third, saying that they are not comfortable with telling you what they watch and what they consume online. And then when it comes now to what they are sharing online, how they are conducting themselves, you see the numbers lower once again. 26% are saying, I am comfortable with sharing my parents what I am sharing online. Where almost 50% of them are saying, I am uncomfortable with sharing with my parents about what I am sharing online, what I am posting online. So parents, we need to strengthen the communication channels with our children. We need to address the shame and fear barriers that they may have in disclosing this information to you. And we need to create non-judgmental reporting mechanisms for them. All right? So, have an age-appropriate talk about these things, encourage critical thinking, talk about positive ways to explore the technology, and explore sites and apps together. And in some cases, you may have to get counseling support. We know of cases like that where children physically fought their parents because of what they were doing, because of confiscating the phone. Sometimes the child responded by fighting the parents. Some of them involved in activities that is serious, it's severely impacting their mental health. And we need as parents to sometimes get that help and support. Miss Brathwaite-Wharton, you could talk to her about that. There's also the use of technology that can help you. Use set parental controls. use Safe Search. These are all things that we as an organization, we can help you with. We do have sessions where we do actual workshops on how you can implement this. And then we also have something, we do have some in the back, something called a family media plan, all right? What this says is an agreement between you and your child that says what is the expectations of you as a child in using your internet and digital device in the home, and what's the responsibility as a parent in managing that relationship, because you have a commitment as a parent to spend quality time with them. All that is in the agreement in helping to build stronger family relationships. So I want to leave with you. You have the power to make a better choice, and I want to thank you for listening to me and this information. I hope there's something that could help you going forward in your parenting. Thank you. At this time, I'm going to ask my wife to join me up here with we want to make 2 quick presentations. And we're going to ask Miss Allison Roach-Plumer to join me at the front. She's representing the Ministry of People Empowerment and Elder Affairs. So please welcome her as she comes. And we simply want to, daughter, photos, thank you.
No, I can't. My hair is not braided.
Your hair is not braided. Aria, bring my phone and come close, please. It's only on my phone, you don't gotta worry.
You just did the presentation, right? You just did the presentation, right?
Yes. So my wife is going, come to the front, please, come to the front. Portrait. Yeah, she doesn't have on the braids. That's what she said. Listen, and when we tell our students is that you are beautiful just as you are. Isn't she beautiful as she is? All right. Over here by the echo. Actually, come back this way. Let me bring this over here. So this is a thank you to the Ministry of People Empowerment and this young lady who've been really supporting our initiative. And we are presenting her with the Resilient shirt, part of the camp. So we want to say thank you so much for supporting us. You know, look at me, look at the camera. Madam, you could come closer, you know. Come closer, please. Come closer, please. Listen to my dad. Listen to your dad. So thank you very much, Allison. And thank you to the Ministry of People Empowerment. Don't move. We also want to say thank you to the Massey Foundation, and we have Miss Jillian Corbin here, representing the Massey Foundation. And the Massey Foundation has been supporting us over the last 2 years in helping us to reach thousands of young people with information concerning all that you're seeing here, how social media and the internet is impacting their mental health and behavior. Over to Madam Sherna.
Sorry. Sorry, question? Not at this juncture. We'll take questions and answers. Like I'm coming through the mic. At this time, I want to introduce our next speaker, but before that, just letting you know that if you just have light refreshment, just a nibble, something to, little muffin on the side. If you wanted to, you can go over to the table. We do not want to break, do not want to stop the flow. Because when we say we're going to have a 5-minute break session, it turns into 15 minutes, but feel free to segue to the table while I do my introduction if you want to do that, or we can wait for the question and answer segment. So as I was saying, we want to move on to our next speaker. And our next speaker is Miss Juanita Brathwaite-Wharton. Mr. Goslin would have introduced her just now. She's a clinical and educational psychologist and senior psychologist at the Ministry of Education, to give them their correct name, the Ministry of Education, Technological and Vocational Training. There's more to it? Oh yes, transformation. Yeah, there's a transformation bit of it now that I am saying. Mission. So that's a new name, because I'm saying the MET one, and then I'm still saying the technological and vocational training. So these names keep changing, but we all know the Ministry of Education. So, right, so she is with, however, the Division of Student Support Services, where she has served for 23 years. She previously worked as a child guidance clinic at the psychiatric hospital and trained and worked in New York City, including serving as the program director for Jumpstart New York. She is the mother of 2. So not only professionally does she know what she's talking about, I'm sure that personally she knows what she's talking about as well. So can we put our hands together for our next speaker, who will deal with coping with digital anxiety and stress.
Good evening, everyone. When Gazi asked me to do this presentation, I wasn't quite so sure why he needed me, because he does such a good job in terms of speaking on these issues with regards to our children and the use of digital devices. And as you can see, he just pretty much gave you much of the information in his presentation. So for that reason, there are actually some aspects of what I had prepared that I'm going to skip over, because we would have already spoken about it before. So, coping with digital anxiety and stress. Yeah. Digital anxiety, what exactly are we speaking of when we speak of digital anxiety? Digital anxiety refers to the stress and unease experienced due to excessive use of digital devices, social media, and online communications. So I want to know, how many of these icons do you recognize? If you recognize 3 or more, raise your hands. Tell me some of them. Facebook. Yeah. Yes. I actually learned of this one through Gazi. Discord. It's a social media platform where apparently a number of our young people are engaging on, where they meet persons and build relationships. Very dangerous. And the last one, I can't help but put this one here because I have to see it every day. Nobody knows what that one is? Roblox. Yeah. So as the person who did the introduction said, I have 2 children, a 22-year-old girl and a 9-year-old boy. So my 2 experiences are completely different as it relates to parenting children with this whole digital use methodology. So my son is very much into Roblox. So we have all these conversations about Roblox, and one of the ground rules is that he's not allowed to play with persons that he doesn't know. So last year we were in New York, and he met a little girl in a store, and they exchanged, and he plays Roblox with her. She's in New York, he's here in Barbados. A few weeks ago, we went to a family wedding, and he met a little boy who lives in England. So he can engage with those persons that we know of who are outside of our domain, but he's not allowed to engage with strangers, because that's a common feature in Roblox. You engage with people all parts of the world, and oftentimes they're people who are posing as children, and sometimes they're not. Just recently, I saw something about some additional danger with Roblox, with persons getting information from children, their personal information, finding out who they are, where they live, etc., and using it for negative purposes. So the thing is that we are social beings. We are created to be social. Adolescents especially find it increasingly difficult to function without social media. Most young people seem as though, it's like their oxygen. They cannot operate unless they are engaging with social media. Over the past 10 years, the rapid emergence of social networking sites like Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook has led to significant changes in how our young people communicate and interact with each other. Now, they tell me that Facebook is for old people. No young people deal with Facebook anymore. They're on Instagram, they're on Twitter, they are on TikTok, all of those apps, but Facebook is for those who are 30 and over. Now, because they are ever present and always using media, it has a tremendous impact on how themselves, how they're able to manage emotionally, how they're able to function in terms of mental health and wellness. So when we speak about mental well-being here, we're speaking about a state of wellness in which individuals recognize their potential, successfully navigate daily challenges, perform effectively at school or work, and make a positive difference in the life of others. There's a current debate on the benefits of social media. Is it beneficial to our mental well-being, or is it posing several challenges and detrimental factors? So we're going to look at a few. What are some of the pros? Social networking is an important part of safeguarding mental health, according to some. Social support systems are important. They're important to our physical health, they're important to our mental health, and they're important to our mortality. In essence, our ability to operate with different human beings is important to our total wellness. And for that reason, some people say it's important to have a social presence because, you interact with persons, you build relationships, etc., etc. Social networking sites allow young people to establish friendships, to discuss ideas, to discover new interests, expose themselves to different cultures, and express themselves. Now, when you and I were younger, especially between the ages, I would say, of 12 to 16, we may or may not have had the opportunity to travel outside of Barbados. So you may have gone to another Caribbean country. If you were lucky, you went to the USA, maybe you went to the UK. Our young people, at very young ages, can travel all over the world and go nowhere. They can engage in life in Asia, in the rest of the Caribbean, in the USA, all over the world, and find themselves enveloped in cultures and activities that persons outside of Barbados engage in. One of the things that has become very popular recently is this whole anime phenomena. And so a lot of our children who are into anime are into Japanese culture. So I have children who tell me they're learning Japanese, and at first I was very, excited. Oh, wow, you want to learn a foreign language, and then they tell me it's because of anime and because of what they see on the cartoons and so on. So they're into Japanese culture. They can tell me all kinds of things that the Japanese do. They tell me all these words that they use in Japan because they're into anime. We also have the phenomenon where a lot of our children, somebody said the Barbadian accent is soon going to be extinct because we have people with American accents and with British accents and so on. They may not have ever traveled, but because of their engagement on social media and the things that they watch and so on, they are all over the world and still here. Social media also allows our young people to learn new information. We're still on the pros, including on mental health. So recently, I was at a meeting and we were saying it's a good thing that our young people are very cognizant about this whole thing about mental health. When we were younger, we weren't concerned about mental health. Nobody knew anything about this mental health and so on. But our young people are now very into mental health, and they will tell you, all of these different things you have to do to keep your mental well-being and so on. And we were at a meeting recently. This was at the Ministry of People's Empowerment, and I was saying to them, too far north is south. There was a time when mental health was stigmatized and nobody wanted to talk about mental health. But we're now in a place where everybody wants to talk about mental health, and some people are actually using it as a crutch. So some children will say, oh, I'm depressed. Oh, don't make me take the bus home from school. I'm so anxious when I get on the bus with all those different people and so on. So we've gone from one extreme to the other. So we have to find ourselves somewhere in the balance. So it's good that they're learning the new information, but how are they using it? What are some of the cons? We know from research that has been done that there's a correlation between social media use and depression. Gazi spoke about that earlier. We know that there's an increased risk of loneliness, empathy loss, and self-harm. He spoke about someone who committed suicide in the USA and the fact that the persons who were involved in the bullying and so on were not too concerned. We see that phenomenon here in Barbados. As a matter of fact, we had a young lady who committed suicide, I think it was last year. And she had just moved from one secondary school to another. And we had to send in counselors both at the school that she was presently assigned to and the school that she was at before. And I was shocked when the counselors reported to me that some of the children at the school she was at was like, oh yeah, she committed suicide. Let's see who else we can get to kill themselves. Whereas we thought that the children were going to be so disturbed, oh my God, she's dead, so on. That loss of empathy, and that's something that we see more and more of, which we have to be very concerned about, especially when we see what's happening in the social arena where a lot of our young people, I was going to say young men, but I've also seen some young women as well getting involved in crime and doing things that we're like, is there no conscience? Is there no empathy for the victim? That exposure has caused a lot of that loss of empathy that we're seeing. As a result of that, there are high incidents of trolling and cyberbullying, often impacting on one's personal feelings of acceptance and sense of self. Another one of the cons is the fact that children are exposed to information on some things that we would rather them not be involved in. Things like drugs, things like techniques for suicide. Children will tell you that they can go on websites that tell them how to kill yourselves, what's the most effective way, what are the techniques that you can use. And then, of course, things about sexuality that eventually they have to learn what's going on in the world, but you as a parent may decide, I'm going to have that conversation with my child when she's 11. But then your child is on the media and your child goes onto all these sites and they are aware of so many, sometimes even more than we are. They can tell you because of their exposure. So let's talk about the impact of social media and teen anxiety. Now you can see two pictures of two lovely young ladies. There are four pictures actually, because each of the young ladies, there is a picture of that person naturally, and then there's a picture of the person using the filters that you can use on social media. And a lot of our young people cannot present themselves to the media unless they're using filters, which is a very concerning thing because it says that you're not comfortable with who you really are. You have to present a different image. This can foster unhealthy comparisons to curated online personas, leading to inadequacy and low self-esteem. So what you're seeing on the media is somebody using a filter or somebody who has enhanced their actual image in some way or the other, and from looking at them all the time, you then begin to feel inadequate. Oh, I'm not as pretty as she is. Oh, my hair doesn't look like hers does. Oh, I don't have the same kind of clothes as she does. Likewise, there are often pictures of perfect families, and so within your family setting, the reality is that you may be experiencing some financial challenges, You may not be able to allow your child to go to all of the social events that others seem to be going to. You may not be able to follow some of the trends. Like recently in Barbados, there's this new trend where at Christmas time, the whole family gets Christmas pajamas and they take these perfect pictures and so on. And our children may feel left out if they're not involved. So we have two pictures of two families here. The first one is just a generic family found on social media to showcase the point. But this second picture is actually, I'm trying to remember the guy's name. This is called the Watts family. And the young lady and her husband often would post perfect pictures on social media of themselves and their family lives and so on. And I can't remember when it was, but a few years ago, Mr. Watts, I think he's Christopher Watts, actually killed his wife and the two children. She was pregnant, he killed her and the two children, and then afterwards people were like, but I thought they were the perfect family. You know, they seem so perfect in their social media persona, but in actual fact, a lot of times people present an image that is not really true. And so this picture, as the caption says, is quite profound. If you look at it carefully, you would see that an apple is being portrayed. And what you see is a perfect fruit. But the reality is that there's a backside of it that you're not seeing. And the thought for the day is that social media never shows the whole picture, and that perfection is often an illusion. So oftentimes we have young people feeling badly about themselves because of an illusion, a facade. Social media creates a pressure to maintain constant connectivity. So you would notice that sometimes you're out with young people, and as Gazi said, they can't put the phones down. Every 5 minutes, they have to be looking at the phone. Or the phone pings, and you have to see who's that's trying to connect with me. What's that notification I'm getting? I thought it was really funny last Monday. I turned on my TV, and they were showing Kadooment Day. And I thought it was so funny. There were people jumping in bands, fully bedecked in Kadooment costumes, music pounding, people all around them, and they're on the cell phones. I said, what is this? Even in that kind of setting where there's so much happening around you that you can engage with, people could not disconnect from the media. Now that obviously causes the whole feeling to always be connected causes a lot of pressure, yeah? Like, I need to know what's happening. I'm here, but I need to know what's happening there and there and there as well. Gazi introduced the whole notion of fear of missing out. FOMO, you often see it written as. This is the feeling of anxiety triggered by the possibility of not being included in some kind of exciting event that others are experiencing. So you're in your Kadooment costume, but you want to know what else is happening on Instagram because you feel as though you're going to be missing out. The fear of missing out causes a constant urge to stay updated with friends, urge of doing multiple activities. So you're here, but somebody else is at a picnic, and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm in this costume, but I wish I was at that picnic as well. It causes us to have access to all the news everywhere, what's happening all around the world. It causes the feeling of sadness in young people if, for example, the Instagram notification pops up and you look and you recognize, wait, well, my friend's gone to a party somewhere else and I'm here. Oh my gosh, I'm missing out on that activity. It causes them to feel as though they have to photograph everything themselves and put it out there on the media because they don't want other persons to think that they're not having fun too. So you go out and you see young people constantly like this. And then they're posting the photos because they don't want other people, or they want other people to feel that they're in the do too. And then, of course, what that does is it causes them to want to or to spend money that they don't have, doing things that they can't afford. So when you have children in school, they put that pressure on you and the parent. Mom, I may have to go here. I have to go there. I have to get a new outfit. I have to be involved. Does this look familiar to any of you? Social media has a propensity to reduce face-to-face interactions and reduce social activities and relationships. So one of the pros we said, it has the ability to connect young people with other young people. But then what it does is that you're connected with people online, but the persons who are physically present, you're disconnected from. And so you go out to dinner with your family, and persons are trying to engage in conversation, but you are disconnected because you are engaged with the phone. Our boys, when I looked at Ghazi's statistics carefully, when he talked about the difference between boys and girls, the girls are more so on the social media than the boys are, but the boys are very actively engaged in the gaming. And if we don't put restrictions on them, we would recognize that they're spending less and less time with family and more times locked away in a dark room, engaging with persons in the virtual space. I actually know of a young man who lost a few jobs because he is so addicted to gaming that he stays up till the wee hours in the morning, gaming and playing and engaging with persons in virtual reality, and then he can't get up for work, and so he gets to work late constantly, and he's lost quite a few jobs that way. But he has, I didn't even know that there's all these fancy, what do you call them, accessories that you can use when you're in this gaming world, so fancy headphones and pretty lights and all this kind of thing. He spent all the money that he's worked for with all these different accessories for the gaming, but then he can't maintain the jobs because he's so busy doing the gaming that he's not able to get up and take care of his personal responsibilities. Now that's when we know that we got a serious problem. And so we don't want to wait. Once we see those kinds of trends with our young people, we don't want to set them up for failure. We don't want them to get to adulthood and then they can't function effectively and be independent and manage their own lives because they are so addicted to the media. So I wanted to make this comparison because even though the statistics show that the girls are more into social media, we got to watch the boys as well. Again, because we're so addicted to it, it causes interruptions to sleep patterns and contributes to digital fatigue. Now, as a result of COVID, our children were thrust into a virtual space. So there were some children that perhaps parents hadn't even given them a device before, but then we were doing online school and every child had to have a device. Schoolwork is coming online. They then find themselves engaging in social media and other aspects of the digital media that they could get involved in. And we recognize that it's impacting their sleep. Now, I don't know about you, but most human beings, if you don't sleep well, it causes you to become very irritable. It causes you to forget things easily. It causes you to not be able to function at your full potential. And so this whole challenge of not sleeping well is very important, especially in school age, because it means that you're not able to do what you're supposed to do within the school setting. It also causes an increase in the aggression that we're asking ourselves, where's all this aggression coming from? If you're sleeping, you're not functioning, your brain starts to get jarred in terms of the wiring, and it causes irritability and aggression. So all of that we just spoke of can be stressful to the psyche of a person. Now remember, adolescence is a very critical period in a person's development. And so that in itself is very stressful, the physical maturation, the sense of finding out who you are as a person and what's not. So that combined with the stresses of social media and the digital platform, the demands of school, social pressures, and developmental changes can significantly affect a young person's well-being. So, Ghazi spoke about a young lady committing suicide. Now, the young lady on your left was 10 years old. She committed suicide. I think I can't remember the state, but she committed suicide because of online bullying. In the middle, we have this young man who is 14 years old. Now, he didn't commit suicide. sorry, he did commit suicide. He committed suicide because he fell in love with an AI bot. So for those of you who don't know what an AI bot is, it is a persona that is computer generated, not a real person, but it has a simulated lifestyle, meaning that it operates like a human being. So from engaging in AI, he found himself attracted to this AI persona, and I guess the relationship was not going as he thought it should go, so he committed suicide at 14 years old. And then to your right is this another 14-year-old young lady who also committed suicide because of bullying. In Barbados, we have not been able to trace specifically any of the recent suicides we had directly to online engagement, but there's no doubt that there's lots of online bullying going on in our schools, a lot of the fights that happen in schools, a lot of the discord between particular groups at school is because of what is going on online. And even though we have not connected suicide specifically, there are incidents where children have threatened or attempted to. I remember a few years ago, we had a little boy at primary school. He was actually the head boy, who did not want to go back to school at the beginning of a term, a particular term. From being a good student who, behaved well, did his work and so on, one vacation period, he decided, I'm not going back to school. And of course, the parents said, what do you mean? Of course you have to go back to school. And they didn't engage him in further conversation to find out what was going on. The first day of school, he actually tied a belt around his neck and was attempted to go through a procedure to end his life. And somebody came in and they found him, and not understanding the significance of what was happening, they got upset with him and said, you have to go to school this morning. And he caused some fuss, and grandfather actually lashed him and walked him to school. And when he got to school, a big fracas was created because he didn't want to go in. He got some more lashes and he went in. I got a call from the parliamentary representative, who's also a doctor in the area, and she said, something has to be going on here. The family isn't understanding, but this is not normal behavior. Why would a child who was doing so well all of a sudden doesn't want to go to school? The fact that he attempted suicide is serious. He needs an evaluation. And so once you attempt suicide or you threaten suicide, we have to refer you to see a psychiatrist. So we referred him to the psychiatrist. He went down to the psychiatric hospital. They did the assessment. They decided that he needed to be admitted to the children's unit, the Thrive Children's Unit. And he was there for a few days. At first, he wouldn't open up and engage, but eventually, he shared with the persons in Thrive that while he was on vacation, he and a number of the members of his class were playing Minecraft. Y'all know Minecraft? Well, Minecraft is a game that the children play. You build all kind of buildings and cities and so on and so forth. I'm not sure what the object of it is, but you build all these things. And what happened is that he blew up somebody's great city that they had created, and the child whose city he blew up told him that he was going to beat him when he got back to school. And it is for us the adult, it may seem simple. For that simple reason is why he decided, one, that he didn't want to go back to school, and two, why he attempted suicide. Imagine if they didn't walk in and find him with that belt around his neck. He would have killed himself just because of this whole Minecraft activity. So even though we have not been able to trace it directly in Barbados, it certainly is impacting our children in the same way. So, having said that, what are some of the signs of depression that we are looking at that our children may exhibit if they are so severely impacted by the media? We're looking at things like helplessness. We're looking at things like constant guilt, expressing feelings of guilt for things that may be happening around them. We're looking at things like anger. Children who in the past, were mal-mannered and so on, but they are now constantly in a state of anger. Those who withdraw from their family and friends and from activities that they previously engaged in. So the child probably was into swimming, and then all of a sudden he doesn't want to go to swimming anymore, and he's not interested in connecting with his swimming friends and so on. Low concentration or none altogether. Persons who are talking about death. changes in appetite, and that could either mean increased appetite where they're eating constantly where that wasn't happening before, or they used to eat a lot and all of a sudden we recognize that they're not eating like they used to. The loss of energy, the feeling of listlessness and can't be bothered. Those who are having sleep problems, either you're sleeping constantly or you're not sleeping at all, and then engaging in maladaptive practices like alcohol and drug use. Now, anxiety, some may reflect some of the same symptoms as depression, but in anxiety, you're also looking at things like a child becoming more clingy than usual, those who are restless and fidgety, complaining of physical ailments, stomach aches, headaches, all kinds of things. We call that psychosomatic illness. Displaying changes in eating and sleeping habits, similarly to the depression. Expressing negative thoughts or worries, always worried and concerned. But if I go out there, this may happen and that may happen. They get upset or angry more quickly, have bouts of unexplained crying, and struggle to concentrate. So what are some of the things that we can do to help our young people who are experiencing stress, anxiety? We need to talk to them. Sometimes we're so busy, caught up in our own worlds, that we don't spend a lot of time with our children just to talk, find out how things are going, how school is going, how are they engaging with their friends, what are the kinds of things that are bothering them. We may also want to ensure that they find time for relaxation. Again, our children's lives can be very active, very busy, and sometimes, outside of social media, finding time for them to just relax and what we call debrief. Sleep. We spoke about sleep before, how important sleep is. We want to make sure that children are getting adequate sleep for their own cognitive development, for their own physical development, and also in order for them to engage in the activities that they're required to both at school and extracurricular. Exercise is critically important for all of us, including children. And if children are actively engaged in social media constantly, they're not getting outside and playing like we used to play, all kinds of games, hopscotch, sticky, and this and that. A lot of our children don't even know what those things are anymore. You ask them, you know what's sticky? Like, what? Like, what do you mean? They're not outside like we used to be. You want to be your child's role model. A lot of children who engage in negative, building those relationships with those people who extend themselves to them on social media have a challenge in real life because they don't have positive persons that they can relate to. So when that person presents themselves, as Gazi said, mirroring the language that they do and so on, well, then it's easy for them to be caught, to be hooked by the fishing, as he spoke of earlier. When they share with us the struggles that they're having, we as parents want to be able to help them problem solve, to look at different solutions, and to help them figure out how they can manage better. We want to create an environment in our homes that is healthy, that is comfortable, that's emotionally safe. A lot of children tell us that the environment at home is hostile. People are always quarreling. There's always fighting and confusion and so on. And yes, we know that adulting is very stressful, but we always have to be mindful that we want to create a safe home environment for our children where they can relax away from the pressures of the world and feel as though they can literally let their hair down. We want to listen, find that time where they can talk to us and share the challenges and concerns that they are having so that they can feel less stressed and anxious, not just about social media, but generally about the things that they engage in. So, we spoke about some of these things before, so I'm not going to go through that, but how do we modify our children's use so that it can impact positively their mental health? One of the things that we want to do, if you recognize that there are certain apps that your children are using that are causing them significant problems, you want to remove those apps from their devices or, in conversation with them, come up with the solution to remove some of these addictive apps. I showed you some icons before. That Discord app, for me, no child under the age of 18 should be engaging in Discord. So if you go home, you look at your children's device and recognize that they're on Discord. Discord is not for them. TikTok, I think most of our children are engaged in TikTok, especially at the secondary level. TikTok too has its pros and cons because, again, you have a lot of people telling you about mental wellness on TikTok and sharing financial literacy ideas and so on, but there's also a lot of negative. And so I think the negative, the propensity to engage in negative activity is greater than the likelihood of finding some of those positive things. So you want to look at the apps that they're engaged in and look at the ones that may be causing them challenges. Instagram can be okay, but what I find, especially with the girls, is that they're busy comparing themselves to the other people who are presenting the perfect images, and then that begins to affect their self-esteem and how they feel about themselves. Even with adults, I was asking a friend of mine recently if she knew of this particular lady, Barbadian lady, who usually shares a lot of positive information on Instagram for women. She has an organization here, and usually on mornings she would, do a video sharing inspirational stuff. And my friend said to me, I don't watch her anymore because she makes me feel bad about myself. This is an adult. I said, what do you mean? Because I mean, you ladies usually so positive. I couldn't figure out what she said. Her hair is always perfect. Her makeup is always perfect. And it makes me feel inadequate. And I was surprised when she said that, because it's a big woman I'm talking about, And in watching the other young lady, all I was seeing was the positive. I like that comparison I didn't even conceive of. But if it can affect us as adults that way, imagine what it does for the children. We want to prioritize other activities other than social media, and we're going to talk about how we can do that in a little bit. And one of the things you may want to do with your children is have them turn off the notifications so they don't always have to be constantly on, like, what is it? Is there something on Instagram? Is there something on TikTok? What is it? Because that can cause digital fatigue quite easily. Now, there are ways in which we can engage with social media healthily. Young people can cultivate a healthy relationship with social media, but it requires purposeful effort. It requires a greater sense of self-awareness and the implementation of intentional coping strategies. How to use social media intentionally. Break unhealthy patterns and habits. You got to be looking for those patterns. For those persons who, as soon as they get up on mornings, before they even say their prayers or whatever, they snatch the cell phone and they're looking to see what they would have missed in the wee hours in the morning. I mean, what really that could be going on at that point in time. So once you see those kinds of unhealthy patterns, you want to be looking to see how we can break them. Ask your children to think about why you are using social media. And that's profound. Because a lot of times people are using social media because everybody else is doing it, and because they feel a sense of disconnectedness from what the crowd is doing if they themselves are not engaged. And then once we recognize that that's a challenge, we want to talk about that more. You can use social media intentionally by following people who inspire you. There is what do you call it? As God says, the media tracks you. So if you find yourself, for example, looking at things related to gospel music, it's going to flood you with more things related to gospel music. If you find yourself looking at things related to anime, it's going to flood you. So you want to follow people and do things that inspire you. You want to use it to relax. You want to also employ the technique of unplugging at times from the media. So what are some of the habits that we can use as parents to help our children combat unhealthy social media use? We want to prioritize healthy sleep routines. That may mean putting away all the devices at least an hour before the official bedtime when you want to go to sleep, because the research tells us that the lights and so on from devices actually interrupts our ability to fall asleep and to sleep well. We want to set family engagement time where all of us including the adults, put down the devices and just engage with each other. For some people, that's at the dinner table. For others, it may be a devotion time, whatever it is, watching a movie together, whatever. We want to encourage a love for grounding in the outdoors. Again, research tells us that when we engage in nature, it actually helps calm us and distress us. So we want to encourage our children from young. Don't start when they're teenagers. If you start from when they are young, it creates that sense of appreciation for nature. We want to expose them to extracurricular activities that keep them busy. So from the time they're in primary school, let's expose them to all the different things that they can pass, sporting activities, dance, drama, singing, music, whatever, so that we can keep them busy. Children who are actively engaged in extracurricular activities, the ones who wake up early and go to swimming, and then in the afternoons they're going to track practice, and then they haven't got all that time to spend on social media. But it's best when you start it early so it becomes inculcated in them. You also want to engage them in pro-social youth programs. So if you look here, you will see 4-H. You see the girls at the front. That's Haynesville Youth Group. Once upon a time, we used to have a lot of youth organizations and communities. They don't have so many of them, but where there are, we want to engage our children in those kinds of activities. There are youth groups attached to church. There's Pathfinders here. There's the Barbados Cadets. There are the Girl Guides. All of those organizations are saying that the membership is dying because young people are not coming out because, of course, they're at home on the media. So we want to engage them in pro-social youth activities where they can connect with young people like themselves outside of the media. I think the time is gone. 5 more minutes? Okay. I'm trying to go through as quickly as I can. So some intervention tips. Try to be goal-oriented. You're engaging in social media, what's the purpose? So I am interested, you may have a young lady that says, okay, I'm interested, I want to be a hairdresser. So I'm on Instagram and I'm following all of these international hairdressers who have these big businesses and so on to help me grow and learn in the area that I am headed to. We want to set realistic time limits. God, he talked about, and I was there counting him and he said 8 hours. And I'm saying, okay, so if a child gets home at 5 o'clock, 8 hours would mean like till 1 o'clock in the morning. So if they're on social media so long, when is homework being done? When they're doing the other things that they need to do. So setting realistic timelines. Having mindful breaks where you detox. You can have weekends where you say, okay, nobody's using the devices this weekend. We're going to focus this weekend on X activity. Engaging in safe online communities. Using digital etiquette, he spoke about that as well. Teaching skills on handling online bullying and negative social media content. We want to develop social skills, including self-awareness. A lot of our children are not self-aware. So you would have some beautiful young ladies and they will tell you, I don't feel as though I look good. I don't like my hair. I don't like my shape. I don't like this. I don't like that. So building that sense of self-awareness and emotional regulation. Teaching healthy coping skills. Okay, so the others are doing this and you're not able to do it. What does that mean? Does it mean that something is wrong with you? No, just helping them to cope with what they're confronted with. Building interpersonal relationships, as I said, through the groups and the activities that we spoke about before. Helping young people curate their feeds. As I said, there's a saying that the computer people use garbage in, garbage out. What you engage in is what you're going to be flooded by. Sharing selective information, meaningful moments that represent your true selves. Teach them that in-person validation is more than superficial likes. And one of the things that our young people do is that they post a lot of things on their Instagram stories which disappear after a while. They disappear, so they think and that they're not accessible, but the images that we create by what we put in our stories stay in people's minds. So recently, I thought it was a little humorous listening to Pick the Crop last week, where one of the Calypsonians actually sang about another Calypsonian who was engaged in a social media battle with her daughter. I don't know if any of y'all picked that up. And I was like, oh my goodness, these things do not die, and people do not let them die. So even in that arena, we saw an example of how you post something on a social media story, it disappears, or so you think, but it stays in the minds of people for a long time. And then it impacts how people see you going forward. So you might be going through a bad moment at that time, and you get real upset, and you go on the social media story, you say a few curse words, but that's not really the person you are, but that's the image that you have created. Having healthy boundaries when it comes to exposing vulnerability. You don't gotta put everything on social media, everywhere you go, everything you do, every conversation that you have, because you don't want all of that information being out there about you. Connecting with authentic friends online. So I was talking previously about a person who may be into hairstyling and they're using the media to help advance their knowledge in that area. So to your right, you will see a profile of a young lady who is into skincare, and her profile is all about the skincare and so on, purposeful use of the media. Now, you may recognize as a parent that your child may be having some challenges. You may recognize that some of the things we spoke about in terms of the depression and the anxiety, or even just their maladaptive use of the media. You may want to have that conversation with the child, but then you may recognize, I need some help. I need somebody else to come in and assist me in this. And so you may want to reach out to guidance counselors at schools. We also have school counselors and school social workers, school counselors at the secondary level, school social workers at the primary level, and all of them work with the Student Support Services Unit at the Ministry of Education. So phone books are kind of almost obsolete now, but for those of you who use phone books, you can find the number in the phone book, or you can Google it, Student Support Services, Ministry of Education, and the number is there. But just in case, the number is 535-0851. There's paradox if, as Gazi said, you recognize that there's a challenge and you think you need some help in terms of creating those boundaries or even communicating with your child. Paradox is also there that can assist you in that area. You may want to access private help through any number of the counseling psychologists that we have available in Barbados. Or you may want to speak with a child psychiatrist. We have one, Dr. Elizabeth Rochester. She's the only child psychiatrist we have in Barbados. Hard to get to because she's the only one. So if you call now, you may get an appointment 4 months down the line, but she is available. And then, of course, there's the Thrive Family Center, which is the children's unit at the psychiatric hospital. If you think your child, the behavior, the anxiety, depression is so extreme that they need real professional support, you can make contact with Thrive, and they can arrange for the child to be assessed and for help to be given. Sorry. So I assume that when you didn't take the questions from Gazi's presentations that we were doing them all together. So I don't know if anybody has any questions that they may want to ask or any comments that they may want to make at this time. Everybody's quiet. Yes, sir.
So I have two questions. So one for Gazi, just a simple one. What was the age range for the survey we did?
It was secondary school, and the respondents included persons from 11 all the way up to 18.
And then for Ms. Schwartz.
Yes, please.
You did mention on that last day, one child psychiatrist. When would you engage psychiatrist versus a psychologist?
Right. So a psychologist does more of the talk. I say talk therapy, but we don't just talk. We also engage in other activities, fun activities, games, and so on, to get children to build their self-confidence, to help them with anger management, problem solving, etc. Talk through whatever issues may be plaguing them mentally. The difference between them and the psychiatrist is that the psychiatrists use medication management. And how would I determine if my child needs a psychiatrist versus a psychologist? If the child's behaviors, I talked about the crying, the talking about death all the time, if the child's behavior is significantly affecting their ability to function. So they're crying all the time, they can't get out of bed, they're not eating, that kind of thing, I would want to take them to the doctor, which is the psychiatrist, because they will assess and they will determine if medication management is what is needed. If they do not need medication management at that time, they may suggest to you, okay, you can continue with your relationship with me as a psychiatrist, or you may want to use a psychologist to help them talk through whatever it is that is concerning them. So the major difference between the two is that the psychiatrists use mainly medication management. Sorry. Mr. Jules, you were about to put, okay. Auntie Becky's are very important.
I want to ask a very foolish question.
No question is foolish. All right. So, how to answer that question? So, the Ministry of Education has relaxed the policy for cell phones. And that happened during the COVID time. Pre-COVID, phones were not allowed in schools. But then during COVID, because we were using devices in order to engage children with education, and some children didn't have a laptop or a tablet, so they had to use their phones, they relaxed the laws with the cell phones. They are currently revising the cell phone use policy, so I am hoping that in September, clarification is given on what the policy is right now. Sure.
What information? Sorry. Sorry.
So, you said it's relaxed. I'm looking at the anxiety and I'm looking at what you just presented. There's use of the cell phone in school, yes? Good. You're coming from home using that cell phone. You're allowed to use it in school. How does this impact a child's schoolwork if they are spending so much time? Are they allowed to use it in classroom?
Right, so the use of it in school is specific. The permission to use it in school is specific. So there are some classes where teachers will tell you Google this or Google that, or go on CXC's website and pull up the social studies syllabus or whatever the case may be. Outside of that direction from a teacher to use it within the classroom, you're not supposed to use it like during lunchtime or break time, or even in other classes where such a direction has not been given. Understand? How do you police that? Very difficult. Very difficult. Very difficult. So if they're found using it outside of those periods, they're actually taken away. Yeah.
Where they have it.
Right. Yeah. You lost them? You mean 2 phones were taken?
No, I mean, he take the school phone. He telling me that he's using it in the classroom
Right.
for a subject, but then outside of that, if he been catch with it, whether he's using it or not, they take it from him.
Right.
So I say to them, keep it, because if you learn to hear, it won't happen.
Follow-up question? Yes. So the question they have in follow-up with what are you guys using to determine the policy? Is there data that you gather and connect with teachers, counselors to determine what is the policy going forward? Or
I can't answer that question because I'm not engaged in that particular policy. Usually the planning department are the ones who create the policies, and usually with other policies, I'm assuming they're doing the same thing. They will get information from schools in terms of what the challenge is, and they would also do research in terms of what's best practice and so on, and then craft indigenous policy for us to use.
well, forgive me for being anything, right? But You're the person that have responsible to the counselors in schools dealing directly with the mental health challenges and associations with that and how it impacts student performance and all that sort of stuff. Shouldn't you therefore be part of that conversation with the policy and all that sort of stuff?
So my personal response to that would be yes, but again, I don't make the organizational,
Thank you very much.
yeah.
And my response to that is that I told the headmaster at the secondary school, I said the government and the ministry have double standards. And he were very annoyed with me, but I was frank because it is one thing here and it's one. There's nobody's coming together and making a final. It's either or. So it is double standards, misleading.
Yeah.
And the children could not get anywhere with that. I am a person of yea or nay.
Right. Unfortunately, not just with social media, that is something that prevails even outside in terms of general students and behavior and so on. And I trust that very soon going forward that we fix that, because one of the challenges that we face is that there, as you said, there's like so many different information that's coming to the children. It's hard for them to make an informed decision because, again, they're young people, and as Gazi said, the brain's now developing and so on. So with so many things coming before you, it makes it difficult. Clarity is important, especially when it relates to behavior and behavior of young people. Yes?
Ask 2 questions and before you All right, yes, good afternoon, everybody. I have 2 questions. The first question is for Mr. Arnold Goslin, as he was introduced earlier. Are there any practical sessions or services that you guys offer for parents to be practically ready?
Currently, we do not have, outside of our webinars and seminars, we don't have a consistent program for parents themselves. We are looking into, as we're coming into our 10th year, we've been looking at a campaign where we work with, I think we had said 1,000 families, but we may have to revise that. But the whole idea is to work with 1,000 families to allow the children to go through the curriculum, like what we did in the camps, and then also to have parents go through the same thing, but with the monitoring and experience and workshops and so on, showing them how to implement the parental mark controls, showing them what they need to do, giving them all the steps and the advice. So we only do it right now for parents in webinars and seminars, but we're looking at programs that could be a long-term plan, and we work with those families. We do the research before and after to let that be something that could guide policy for government going forward.
Okay, thank you very much. Make it sooner than later. My second question for Mrs. Wharton. You mentioned in your presentation FOMO, fear of missing out. But by the way, I'm not a parent. I just asking questions because I'm not asking questions. As a parent, not me, them, what can a parent do in an instance where they're in an environment where their child is giving them that feeling, of missing out, and the parent is doing their best, whether it's because they're working or whatever the circumstances, but that child is in the home environment having that emotion? What is something that they can practically leave here with that they can do?
So as we said in the presentation, we are social beings, and especially young people like to be a part of the peer group. So in lieu of that social media involvement, that's why we spoke about engaging them in pro-social activities and groups where they are engaged with young people and doing positive things and learning skills and so on, so they don't have to feel as though they are in isolation and not engaged with other people around their age. So we can have them engaging with other people around their age, but just in targeted, intentional activities and programs and groups, as opposed to the wild, I said that word purposely, web.
So you're saying basically that parents have to be intentional.
They have to be, yeah. Ideally, as I said, we start those things from young, because if you have a 15-year-old and you're now trying to get the 15-year-old to join football or find girl guides or something like that, it's going to be very difficult. That's why you start them from young, so that it's something that becomes inculcated in them. And as they, let's say they're in brownies and they start to get the badges and so on and get that sense, because the likes that you get on social media gives people a sense of self. When you get the badges and brownies and you recognize, hey, I got 3 badges, I got 6, I got a sash, I get this. It creates the same kind of feeling. So then having gone through that in brownies, it would be easier to get them now into guides when they're 12 or 13, as opposed to now starting it at 15.
Hi. So I have a question / concern, and it came off a little bit off of what we were discussing relative to the phones in school and the use of technology within schools. What I have observed, even watching my 3 children, is that everything that is taught now in schools is in the Google Classroom. Every single thing. So much so that when my second son was taking out his books at the end of term, I said, please make sure you have all your books. I didn't want to hear about no books lost and nothing. He said, well, Daddy, I ain't used them still in the book case.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm wondering if we are reviewing and looking at our policy. I know coming out of COVID, it was an excellent tool in some instances there. But are we looking at our policies around the use of the classroom and how much that is used versus the actual physical books, so that we strike a balance between how much time they spend on the devices? Because we're asking them to manage that, but then they are forced there to do homework. And of course, they're doing the homework there and doing sign outs at the same time, and that distraction comes. So it's very difficult to kind of manage that when you have to go to the classroom to do work. You have to go on to hand in something. You have to go on to get even the notes and the assignments. There's nothing coming from the book. They even saying go and read page 24 to 36 of the book in the bookshelf, right? So I'm not sure what the ministry is looking at in that regard.
So sadly, the thrust is actually not to the books, but away from books. And so I think it was last year that we were supposed to be launching the, the term has gone from me, but we're, instead of giving books in the textbook loan scheme, e-books, sorry. So last September, we were actually supposed to launch a program where all the books were online as opposed to physical books. It is financially, it is cheaper in the short term, because rather than each school now having to get 15 books for each student, having that digital interaction, it's a cheaper short-term cost. But then if you're talking about how being online impacts mental health and so on, the long-term cost is one that we're going to have to consider. We already see it impacting vision, where, from being online constantly, a number of our children, when I wore glasses from when I was 7. When I was young, hardly any children wore glasses. Now, it's like so many children are wearing glasses from primary school into secondary. So we already see the actual physical impact. Well, Gazi has some of it measured there, but we haven't done extensive research on the mental health impact. But the thinking is that having the books online will make it cheaper in terms of actually paying for. But I have a concern for that, not just because of mental health, but I have a concern in terms of maneuvering in the literacy world. Because I know I might be old-fashioned, but I feel there's a value in turning a page and looking at a book. But the thinking is that the world is going digital, and that we have to go digital as well in order to keep up with the world.
Yeah, and I think as a psychologist, you would probably appreciate the impact of writing on a piece of paper, turning a page, versus reading on a screen. I'm an IT professional, so I am very into digital, very into technology, and but I understand that at some point in time, there are impacts on the mind that happen differently when they read stuff on a screen versus when they read it in a book versus when they write it on a piece of paper. There's different learning things happening within my processes happening there.
Right. We have a question in front here, but one of the concerns I have with all that you're saying is, where is the research into what's happening in terms of brain development, the mental health of children? Because I understand that with the concern that you mentioned just now, studies are showing that with just engaging with digital screens all the time, what you are losing, a lot of children are losing, is the ability to create long-term memories, because they're losing a lot of memory triggers. So the triggers in the interaction with the page and different things that you have face-to-face and all that type of stuff, that physical interaction helps to engage the brain more, and it gives more triggers in terms of memory. There's sense, there's smell. You remember how the teacher wrote it on the board, all that sort of stuff. With the digital engagement, because everything is so similar, and then you're worrying, the brain is trying to determine this engagement with the screen is deceptive because it's not giving me the same sort of short attention grabs that I accustomed to. I gotta come and focus, and therefore it's like you constantly want to be distracted, right? So therefore, for me, I think, especially in early childhood, if we move children towards digital screens early, the research is showing that we are actually disadvantaging them. We're putting them at a disadvantage because we're not allowing the brain to develop more holistically. We're not allowing their critical thinking skills and all their interaction skills to get engaged. Studies are showing that when a child is on a screen from very young, and the swiping and pushing, touching the screen and swiping, when they get to school and trying to use a pencil, they cannot grab a pencil. It's painful for them. They cannot button their shirt. They cannot tie their shoelaces. So I think if we are moving forward with that, I understand the cost factor from the books aspect, but I think we are going to be disadvantaged. Putting them at a disadvantage if we do that, especially if we do it in the early childhood ages and in the early ages, even in secondary school.
I agree with you completely. I actually have a personal experience of that because my son was 3 when we went into COVID. He was at Erdison Nursery, and from Erdison Nursery to Westeros Reception Infants A, as you know, on the Google Classroom, all of the activities they did was, all these matching games, and you pick the correct answer. When school opened back up full time, he knew everything. He couldn't write. He could not write. And so when I say he couldn't write, not that he couldn't form letters, he could form letters, because for those of you remember your primary school days, the first thing they teach you is to head up the book. And I remember the teacher telling me he takes the whole time to head up. And I was like, oh my God, this child's going to get left behind. So I said to her, let him do the work and let him bring home the book, and I will teach him to head up. She said they couldn't do that because of COVID. They didn't want books coming into home. So I actually had my aunt, who's a retired senior teacher, I actually had to take him to her 2 days a week, and she worked with him. He had everything up there. He could tell you verbally. Getting it down on the paper was very difficult. And as you said, those fine motor skills and even gross motor skills, if you're just engaging with the media, those things are impacted, as well as the problem solving and those kinds of things that you would have to figure out for your own if you're manipulating physical things as opposed to the online. So I agree with you completely. In addition to the cost factor though, what is being considered at this time is the fact that a lot of, in terms of the economy, that a lot of, there are lots of careers that could be gotten into using the digital devices. So the whole AI and coding, you see here there's a lot of talk about coding and robotics and creating programming and so on. Even social media and social media content, the fact that people can sit in their house and do all manner of things and stream it, and they become monetized on the different platforms and so on. So there's this thinking that it will help build our economy and bring in foreign exchange and so on if we put out a whole lot of students out there who have all of these skills in digital technologies as opposed to some of the traditional things that we're accustomed to. That's what where the thinking is.
No, please don't take the mic back. We are out of time. We have one final question, and you guys have 1 minute maximum to wrap up.
Thank you. Well, this was not so much a question, but more of a comment that we didn't speak to directly. But what I have found is I think that there is a growing problem with the kids looking to social media for attention and validation. Everything is, look at me, this is what I'm doing. Not necessarily that they feel they're missing out, but they want to show off. And there's a level of serious superficiality and probably the development of narcissism happening because we have young people who are, rather than having genuine experiences, everything that they're doing, they just want to put it there and show somebody so they can try to elevate themselves over somebody else. Look at me, this is what I'm doing. And they're copying this influencer model where they're speaking verbosely on things they know nothing about and they are just trying to get attention and seeing things as life is easy, you just go, you talk about things, you get money. And they're really missing out on a lot of the values that we would have grown up with about hard work. All I have to do is be on social media, talk. People are going to like me. I'm going to show every single meal I ever put in my mouth. I'm going to take a picture and I'm going to pose. I'm going to, you know, diminish every actual experience by making everything into a video shoot or a photo shoot when I'm with real people. So I think that aspect of the mental health is a problem. I think we do have a growing incidence of narcissism and superficiality and so on with our young people as a result of social media and trying to copy and surpass everyone else in all the wrong ways.
So I'm giving 1 minute to Mr. Gosling, and I want him to go first because then that will keep him in check. If I give him the mic last, he might, you know. So then I'll have your last wrap up.
I agree completely with what you just said in terms of that superficiality. What?
No.
Go ahead. You're responding to her.
Yes, go ahead.
Because he's going to talk.
Okay.
Don't repeat what she said. Yes, thank you.
In terms of what you said, yes, that is something that is a growing concern. It's part of the curriculum that we have in schools, where we talk about narcissism and the whole culture of what you're doing to get likes and the value that you get. You're tying your self-worth a lot to the value of the likes, the followers, and so on that you get online. And what we say to parents especially, and I think you mentioned it in your presentation, that we have to teach our children to value those who genuinely love them. Because what happens is that they post a picture and 500 people they don't know who just out to make somebody look shame says, you look ugly. And as much as you say you are beautiful and you are this and you are that, because their value is based on what a crowd of strangers is saying. If we teach our young people to value the crowd above valuing genuine connections, we are setting them up to be basically puppets for the gram, if you want to call it that. So it's very important that we create environments, healthy environments, allow them to develop healthy relationships with children. And that's what, even with the Massey Foundation getting involved with Purpose 180 and us doing this camp recently, we really want to continue the relationships that the children had in the camp, because they get to see other children who are saying, hey, I don't have to conform to this, I don't have to conform to that. We teach them about valuing others, about having standards that are based on godly principles and setting God as your standard rather than allowing social media to set your standards. So it's really important that we, as an organization, continue to grow in that aspect. And we rely on you parents, we rely on partners like Massey Foundation, the Ministry of Educational Transformation also in working with us.
Thank you, Mr.
To
Gosling.
continue in this initiative. Thank you very much.
I'll just say that it's clear that we can't get out of our young people being involved in the digital world. What is important then for us to do as parents is to help them craft how they can do it in a healthy way. And even as I would have shared before, that even in school, we're going more towards digital devices and digital forums for education and so on. It means then that parents have to be intentional about having that conversation with their children in terms of what being a good digital citizen is like, and then creating the world around them in terms of exposing them to those pro-social activities, in terms of exposing them to a strong, healthy family life where they are validated, as Gazi said, not just by the strangers online, but by persons who mean well for them and who have their best interests at heart. We can't stop it, but we can create an atmosphere where it is done in the correct way.
Can we put our hands together for our two presenters? Thank you very much, Ms. Brathwaite-Wharton.
You're welcome.
And I want to thank you guys for coming out as well. Before I dismiss, I just want to give an opportunity to Ms. Corbin, to any comments you want to make, or you just made your last comment just now? Okay, all right. Thank you. All right, so you've heard it, and I like what she wrapped it on, is us, the parents, you, the parents, we have to make a difference. Okay, it's one to say all these things and talk about the ministry must do, what everybody else must do, but if we, as parents, do not take responsibility for our children, we will be their biggest disadvantage. At the end of the day, they are our responsibility. I want to thank you again, our sponsors for this evening, which is the Massey Foundation. We want to thank M Graphics. We want to thank Purpose 180. We want to thank Nikon Solutions. I'm trying to remember the other organization is not Nikon Solutions. HD Songs, yes. Beijing Pure Water. We also want to thank Seed Legacy and Purpose 180 Foundation. And on that note, I would like to invite Mr. Nigel Jules to the front again. And Mr. Arnold Gosling. Yes.
Yeah, where the cameras?
Yeah, you don't have to call the cameras.
Excuse me. No, there's no. Oh.
I just want to say a special thank you to Mr. Nigel Jules, who has been a partner with us, especially his support during the camp, being there to make sure your children's experience was enjoyable and so on. He's a very emotional guy. I was telling him that, you know, these children need validation. He needs my validation, but you are always... We just want to say thank you and giving you this resilient camp shirt. Thank you so much for all the work you've been doing.
Thank you very much. I just had to do that. I just wanted to take the opportunity to share a little bit about who Purpose 180 Foundation is. 180. 180. The 180 is really from persons going in one direction, changing to going in an opposite direction. Foundation is based on the Word of God, and purpose is who or what we are all created with. Right. So Purpose 180 Foundation, we use sports and experiential learning to work with youth within the community. It started as a school-based program at the Lester Vaughan School, but then because of all the restrictions that schools have, we took it out of the school environment and made it a community-based program. It runs from September to January every year in partnership with EKCO Nation as well. They do come in, and we do have a segment where we do talk about social media and the arts, etc. But the program really is an avenue to be intentional in the development of our youth. Our main focus for this program is identity and character. So a lot of what we would have discussed today are areas that we work with your children within the community. And then we try to create a mentoring aspect to go beyond the in-house program. So if you're interested or you want more information, you can feel free. You just recognize who you were. Yeah, you can see me after, and I'll give you information. I know that they want to officially close, so we'll give them the opportunity to do that. But thank you for the opportunity to share. And I hand over to Shana.
Yes, so we are officially closing, as Mr. Jules just said. And I want to thank you all again for coming out and taking a part in the parenting session. It was a lot of information, maybe did not get it all, but we have streamed this online and it's saved to our YouTube channel. So yes, you can go on to our YouTube channel, that's EKCO Nation. And by the way, I was supposed to point out to Miss Brathwaite-Wharton that EKCO Nation is spelled EKCO Nation and not ECKO. So EKCO stands for Endorsing Kingdom Culture Only, but you guys can go on our YouTube channel. That's just type in EKCO Nation, EKCO Nation, and you'll be able to review the parenting seminar as well as the previous parenting seminar. I think is there as well. That's the online one that we did. Oh, thank you. And our radio shows, our parent-wise radio shows, those were 10 sessions on individual topics on parenting, which can help you as well. So we have resources online. You can join our YouTube, our WhatsApp channel as well, right? We do have a WhatsApp channel that gives you information on, the WhatsApp number is there, but how do you join the WhatsApp channel? Right, so you know how to do your WhatsApp channels, all the tech-savvy persons, right? You just go into your update site, and that has all the channels, and you can now type in EKCO Nation. We should be there. It gives you an idea of what we're doing, what we have in store, and we send out all the announcements of what next. So,
just a quick announcement. What's next is next week, those who are parents of campers, next week we have our Capture the Flag session with Purpose 180 Foundation. EKCO Nation campers have been reigning champions of the Capture the Flag. So it's next week Saturday. So check out for in your email for the registration, or is it registration or just turn up? No registration. Turn up in your resilient shirts. If your parents here, we have the resilient.
oh yes, we have the resilient shirts for the campers, parents of the campers.
Because it's a stealth game.
Well, our shirts are black, so yes, you have your shirts for your students, for your campers, for the Capture the Flag. Can we all stand while we dismiss, and I pray that God take you home safely. So Heavenly Father, we want to give you thanks for yet another session. We want to thank for each parent that has been here this evening. We want to thank you for sending this over the, you call it the airwaves, over the internet waves, and we pray that other parents will be able to gather the information that was put out here this evening. We pray that they will take it away with them, and as we shall go, take us all home safely. In Jesus' awesome name, amen and amen. Thank you, and have a good evening.
Want me to take my banner with me, or would you all?
Let me find out what.
Join the movement to change the culture, change the future. Become a monetary partner with Echo Nation when you donate to our Scotiabank account number 456124. That's 456124. Checks can be written to capital EKCO Nation. Contact us at 254-3526, email echonation@gmail.com, or visit our website at www.echonation.com for more details. Echo Nation is registered charity number 1429 in Barbados. We thank you for your continued support.
Procedure? Physical? Citizenship? All right,
Real talk, me attack. Y'all, this ain't the time to be ashamed, man. It's not time to be bold-faced. Bold-faced, me, I say. Yeah, me. Listen to me, man. Them a practice them evil and them bold-faced with it. Practice them wickedness and bold-faced with it. I love me Jesus and me bold-faced with it. Bold-faced with it. Bold-faced with it. Them a practice them wickedness and bold-faced with it. Practice them evil and them bold-faced with it. I love me Jesus and me bold-faced.
Hey, this is Ted Bruin from the United States of America representing the Extreme Tour and the Objective Movement. And I got to tell you, this is my second year here at Caribbean Echo Music Conference, and I thought last year was incredible. This year has already blown my mind. The talent out of this world, but more important than the talent, the mission to change the culture, change the future.
Shine bright.
And I let my life be the first way that I express my love. I let my song be my life echo.